Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Thanks for coming to join me. Today we got an interesting one with you. We're going to talk a little bit about the rumors of James Harden possibly returning to the Houston Rockets after this season if he doesn't sign the player option. So we'll get to that, but before we do, you know what it is. Go ahead, if you haven't already, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell right here on YouTube. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, make sure you go into your audio podcast platform. We're pretty much anywhere you get those. Type in the Format Podcast, do a little search. We should come up and you can subscribe there. Make sure you go ahead, leave us a comment here on YouTube or on your audio podcast platform. Give us that 5-star review. And please do that. It helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us, helps us rise in the algorithm so we can keep bringing you this content. All right. So let's get right to it. James Harden. I have some thoughts on him. He has had a really, really good career, and he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, basketball Hall of Fame. Now, with that said, basketball Hall of Fame is iffy. It is not like the baseball or football Halls of Fame. It seems a lot easier to get into the basketball one, but so be it. James Harden obviously started off as a six-man in Oklahoma City playing with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. But since he left there and went to Houston, actually his 9-year stretch in Houston was really one of the great offensive stretches in NBA history. Now, you know me, a lot of things have changed, especially when it comes regards to that dude. But over his time in Houston, James Harden averaged 29.5 points per game, just over 29.6 to be exact. So we'll give him 30 and 8.3 assists. So he wasn't just, taking crazy shots and chucking it up. Now, majority of that time, he had the benefit of being coached by Mike D'Antoni of 7 Seconds or Less fame with the Phoenix Suns. So that system we know really boosts numbers. If you remember Linsanity in New York. So, if you can shoot it, and if you got a high volume usage guy like a James Harden, you're really going to put up numbers. Now, that said, you can't put up those numbers if you're a bum, but it is interesting. James Harden is also, oddly enough, the cause of some rules changes in the NBA. His step back, his patented quote unquote step back three or step back jumper. Actually, because of that, the NBA changed the rule and created the 0 step and the gather step, which in the past, that step back would be a travel. If you go back and watch, he often shuffles his feet. And, if you look, and I'll be brief, if you look at Paul Pierce explains the step back jumper, he shows you it's a strong jab step, so that you can move the defender back because they believe that you're driving, and then one step back, you pull it back, raise up, shoot the jump shot. Oftentimes you see James Harden taking 2, sometimes 3 steps, whether it's the straight step back or the side step back or the side step 3. And clearly that's a travel, or it used to be a travel. Anyway, he got this shot so much to where he was scoring so much with it. The league is like, we can't call this every time. And, the rules ended up being changed on that. On the other side, he was also one of the volume free throw shooters in the league. During his time in Houston, he averaged 10.5 free throw attempts per game. So he was often among the league leaders, especially among guards. And because he used a lot of, I'll just say, trickeration and flopping in terms of getting those calls, the NBA actually, him, Trae Young, and a couple other guys, the NBA actually kind of changed the rules in terms of how they're calling free throws for the offensive players. So that's probably the only good thing they have done to help out the defenders in the NBA. But, since the NBA doesn't play defense anywhere near the way it used to, that doesn't really matter too much. But the point is, James Harden during that stretch, almost 30 points a game, 8.3 assists. That was one of the great offensive stretches of all time. And James Harden was really putting up numbers. The problem is this. He would often disappear in huge playoff games, and clearly he never got his team over the hump to win the championship. Okay, so now he forces his way out of Houston, goes to Brooklyn, play with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, and we know how that went. That didn't go well. So about a year and a half after he arrives in Brooklyn, he forces his way out of Brooklyn, ends up in Philly with Joel Embiid. Now, he's playing well in Philly relatively. He's averaging this year, 21.6 points per game and leading the league in assists at 10.6. So Can't say he can't pass the ball because this is not the D'Antoni system, which runs up numbers. He's clearly doing that. Now, Embiid obviously is a monster getting busy on that low block and in the mid range, and sometimes even from three. Embiid is an animal, in my opinion, the best big man in the game. Some people would say Nikola Jokic. That's an argument for a different day. Matter of fact, maybe I'll do a comparison video on that, discussing Jokic versus Embiid real quick. Last time Jokic and Embiid played each other, Embiid absolutely flambéed that man. But anyway, so yeah, James Harden. Now, realistically, as good as of a 1-2 punch as they are, Harden and Embiid, it's unlikely that Philadelphia comes out of the East. Unlikely that Philadelphia wins the championship because Boston and Milwaukee just seem to be the two dominant powers in the East. They're just better teams. And I could be wrong, but I don't believe that Philly can beat either of them in a 7-game playoff series. Now, all that said, I mentioned earlier in the video that James Harden is up for I believe, a player option after this season. If he doesn't sign it, the rumors are coming out that, well, he may be on his way back to Houston. Now, I think that is super interesting. I guess where I go with that is, like, why does winning not matter to so many players in the modern day NBA? I mean, I know that the money is there and it's in places for the outstanding players that, well, not even outstanding players. I believe on average, the NBA salary today is $10 million a year. So you've got the low end and the high end. And the high end probably brings that up a ton, but on average, $10 million a year. So the money is greater than it's ever been in terms of the NBA, which is amazing, being that the NBA is fallen precipitously behind the NFL and college football in terms of popularity in the country. But anyway, that's a different story entirely. But yeah, so according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, there have been frequent reports about James Harden's interest in rejoining the Houston Rockets. And the latest reports are that the Rockets are expected to aggressively pursue Harden this summer if he turns down his $35.6 million player option. Harden is considering the move. Now, if you're James Harden, why would you do that? The West is tougher than the East, right? You know you're not going to win in Houston. It can't just be about the no state income tax in Texas. I mean, of course, that's a big thing. But as a professional player, when you go to other states that do have state income tax and you play in those states, you pay for that. You pay the tax in those states. So it definitely helps a lot that you're not paying the state income tax, because there is none on the 41 games you play at home in Houston, but you know you're not going to win there. So I'm wondering, what would be the thought process? You forced your way out. You thought the grass was greener on the other side. Now you want to go back there to do what? Just collect some more money and then retire? Like, do you not, like, this is what I don't understand. Like, I know it's old man, get off my lawn or whatever you want to call it, but do these dudes today not want to compete? It seems like so few of them actually want to compete, and that winning has taken a back seat to everything else. James Harden, what is there to gain by leaving Philly and arguably the most dominant teammate you've played with to go back to Houston to do what? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. On Christmas, James Harden was asked by the media about his interest in returning to Houston, and he said, "I'm here. We're playing very well, and I don't know where that report came from, but I'm very excited to be here. We are playing well, and we're continuing to get better." So that was the smart response, right? We're here. We're playing well. We're going to get better. We're going to see what happens. I don't know where that report came from. That's smart. But clearly it's being reported that he's considering the move, and Houston has major interest in him. Now, would the Rockets have major interest in him if they knew that he wasn't interested in coming back? So, like, what are you going back there to do, James Harden? I just don't understand it. I'm so curious to know, when did winning fall by the wayside? And I guess the other question is, how does this affect James Harden's legacy, right? For me, it's a non-starter because I wasn't that impressed with his legacy anyway. He put up a whole bunch of incredible numbers in what I deem to be a less competitive league, and you couldn't get the job done. And then you bounced. You forced your way out to try and go somewhere else, of course, to team up, right? Do the super team thing. That didn't work. Then you forced your way out of there to go somewhere else. that didn't work. And I'm not saying he's going back to Houston, but if the reports are true that he's really considering it and that Houston is, going to aggressively pursue him, then it's like, I don't know. It doesn't look good for me. But, what are you going to do? I guess I got to accept that the modern players think very differently. Seems they are more focused on the business of being a professional athlete, and there's nothing wrong with that. I guess I just kind of look at it the old school way. Like, if you take care of things on the field and on the court, everything else will come. But apparently that's not quite how it goes anymore. So be it. So this is going to be interesting to see. I want to sit back. I want to watch. I want to see what he does. And again, I already wasn't super high on him as a player. But if he leaves Philly to go back to Houston, then I'll really know. I'll be sure. And my opinion of him will decrease even more. So what I want to know from you, if you're Harden, would you leave Philly to go back to Houston? And if so, why? And would this change your opinion of how you see him in terms of his career and his legacy when it's all said and done? All right. So can't wait to hear from you on that. And I'm out. Peace.